The privilege of being a dirty slut. It can be argued that a hoary woman is a privileged woman. That if you lived in a third world country where poverty was widespread, you would not have the privilege to be a skanky, dirty whore. And of course, I say skanky, dirty whore, I say slut, with all due acceptance, because as far as my understanding is concerned, I have yet to find a rational reason for why a sexually promiscuous woman is a bad thing. I could be wrong. There have been individuals who've tried to convince me that yes, a woman who is overtly sexually active with multiple partners, just randomly and shit, they've tried to convince me that it's not good, and they've failed to convince me because I don't think there is much of a rational explanation for why that would be a bad thing in a world with contraception. Like if you're not going to have babies, that reduces like 90% of any reason why we would want to condemn a sexually active woman. Because if you're not going to get pregnant, then that was like the biggest concern historically. Some people have said, oh, but a sexually active woman, if everybody just goes around fucking anybody, then it won't be long before society just deteriorates. Again, I do not see any rational basis for that at all. So, is being a dirty slut. I had the radio on here, just listening to Taylor Swift's new song, Blank Spaces, and one line she says, I can make the bad boys good for a weekend. And it's like, yeah, I mean, this is a girl, and the modern Western privileged woman can do things that women in third world countries just can't. And I think the reason is basic survival. I mean, for the most part, especially historically, evolutionarily speaking, women have been the weaker gender. They are not as physically strong in general because they have the monthly period, because they get pregnant. They have to be more stationary. They have to be in a more nurturing mode, not going out there hunting and killing shit. So kind of evolutionarily speaking and historically speaking, the woman was always the weaker gender. She was always expected to not go out there and do crazy shit like kill animals and build fucking buildings and shit. And of course the reason for that was, well, you can't have the woman who's having a monthly period or who's pregnant with the future children. Who the fuck ever said that driving a car with an annoyingly loud muffler was a fucking sign of manliness? So fucking tired of that nonsense. Anyways. And so because of women in general, their kind of a weaker position in society and tribes and civilization as it evolved, they were naturally dependent on men. And a woman's in that state, when you're naturally dependent on a man, there are certain limitations. I've been saying this recently in the past few videos that I don't think women ideally want a monogamous relationship. I think it's just something they settled for out of survival. As a woman who, especially 100 years ago, before women's liberation, women were very dependent on men just to get by. And because they were dependent on men, there was value in it for them to settle down and be monogamous. There was a lot of value in that because as a weaker gender, maybe not having as much access to resources and overall just being an empowered person, being monogamous was actually a survival strategy, right? But now that we evolve into this modern world where the utility of men is being replaced by the fact that machines are doing so much of manual labor nowadays. Machines are replacing a lot of the manual labor. So a lot of the function that men had that was exclusive to them, that people praise as men for their strong abilities, now robots are doing that shit. And we live in a world where technology allows people to do anything they want. A woman can get in a car and just push a pedal with her foot and drive halfway across the city. Whereas maybe before, because she was considered the weaker gender, or maybe she was on her period, or maybe she was pregnant, or the overall sense that she's a woman and she's weaker, maybe she wouldn't have fucking driven across the city because it was too much goddamn work to walk that goddamn far. But technology has made our lives overall significantly easier. So now that we live in this very modern, very privileged world, where women can get through the day and do incredible things because technology has made life so much easier, and where because they have jobs now in this modern, Western, privileged society, they don't even need men anymore for money because now women have their own jobs and they make their own money. So what's the point of settling down with one man in a monogamous relationship? They don't have to do it anymore. Women don't have to be monogamous. Back then, monogamy was a survival strategy. Women settled down for one cock and one cock only for the next 80 years of their life, because it was a great fucking, it's like an insurance plan. It's like, hey, you know what? I'll suck this one guy's cock. All right, I'll bang this one guy for the rest of my life, and he'll take care of me. It's a great fucking deal. It's a wonderful trade-off for the woman, at least. So I think women used to like monogamy and marriage out of necessity, survival necessity. But now they don't need men as much as they used to. I mean, they still like men. They still love manliness and cock. But now they're free to do all types of stuff. And now I think we're seeing who women really are. And again, I'm not condemning, but women like men. I would argue women like different men. They like being sexually varied, having sex with all types of different men. The only reason they didn't do it before is because, you know, she was probably married. And she was married out of codependency, out of a state of necessity, just as a means of survival. So I think that being a slut is a privilege of modern society. When you see women out there fucking all types of men, yet still having money, still having friends and social circles, not having her reputation ruined, to me that's a sign that you live in a modern, very privileged society. You live in a modern, very privileged society. And so I find that interesting, like, you know, going back to Taylor Swift's song, I mean, what the fuck is going on here? Going back to Taylor Swift's song, you know, it's just funny, man. She's basically talking about, you know, going out and being a liberated Western woman. And I do think that it is a privilege. I think that if you lived in a third world country where where technological advancements were limited, where people in general were not as empowered, where there was much less wealth, I think that women would be more enticed to become monogamous as a survival mechanism strategy. It just makes more sense. You're not as empowered. You don't live in as much of a technologically advanced society. There isn't as much wealth to go around. You're in a more desperate situation as a woman. The idea of depending on a man to get through the day is just that much more real, that much more appealing, that much more logical a conclusion to make. So the modern woman doesn't have those same limitations in the modern Western world. She doesn't have those same limitations in a modern developed country. So to me, being a slut, being a sexually active woman, is a sign of privilege. We should be, I mean, if the point of life is to progress forward civilization and become a prosperous nation, people should be applauding. People should be cheering, like, yeah, our society is full of sluts. That's the true mark of social progress, is if women have the freedom to fuck as many guys as they want. And whereas in your typical third world country situation, there just isn't that much privilege. So you know what? I mean, if you see women being sluts, actually, more specifically, if you see women being sluts and they are championed in society, where sexually promiscuous women are viewed as, or they're accepted, when you see that, you know you're living in a highly advanced, prosperous civilization. Albeit, America might literally implode economically within the next 5-10 years or some shit like that. I mean, I've heard some pretty dooming statistics. But the point is that right now we are relatively successful. Right now we are still the American Empire, and we still have all these great privileges, albeit it might only be a matter of time now before that all disintegrates. But it is a cycle of civilizations, you know. So yeah, I mean, you know, that's what it is. I mean, it's just kind of funny to think about it, you know. If you want the true mark of a prosperous society, just check and see how slutty women are. There's probably a direct correlation between the sluttiness of a society's women, the degree to which they are accepted and applauded and praised for their sluttiness, like it's a sign of empowerment, and the degree to which a civilization is developed and privileged and prosperous. But my final position on slutty women is simply that a slut is not a woman who is sexually active. This is my definition here. A slut is not a woman who is sexually active. A slut is a woman who is sexually active with worthless men. Big difference there. You know, I think if you're a woman and you have your own job and you use contraceptives, and every time you fuck you're not having kids, and you're out and about and you have a job and you make your own money and you live in your own place, who cares how many men you fuck? And if you have a big social circle and you work at a prominent job and you're surrounded by high value male 24/7 men who are, you know, confident and know who they are and go for what they want and aren't afraid, and you feel tempted to have sex with multiple men because you're surrounded by so many great men and you have the privilege to not have to be monogamous because you have your own job, you don't have to be tied down to one man, you don't have to depend on a man, fuck, why not, you know, have sex with as many men as you want? I don't give a fuck. I don't see a rational basis for the condemnation of sexually promiscuous women. Alright? That's the end. I just don't see a rational basis for it. Anyway, so yeah. There you go.
Are you ladies sluts?
No, definitely not.
Alright. Are you ladies sluts?
No.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Okay, great. Alright, so in your ladies' opinions and your definition,
Take the red pill to the next level. Learn more about feminist bullshit and a range of other crucial topics by becoming a Red Pill member. Gets you exclusive videos, newsletters, and other content that no one else gets to see. Click the link below to learn more.